Okay, so I pulled a fancy Arabella from a pre-con sample collector pack, and today we're building a budget version. But just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's weak. Arabella is going to be taken out when she gets out of hand, but even if she's not on the field, the cards we're using will make it very difficult for our opponents to prevent the march of the Barbies. Arabella, Abandoned Doll, is a 1/3 legendary artifact creature toy for red-white that says, whenever Arabella attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 2 or less. So regardless of the budget, our goal is to have as many creatures on the field with power 2 or less as fast and as efficiently as possible. She also can gain you quite a lot of life from her effect as well, so you could also choose cards to capitalize on the life gain. However, the life gain stops if she's not on the field, so I wouldn't rely on it too much. Tokens are the most efficient way to get swarms of creatures on the field, so that's where we'll start. Beetleback Chief, Empty the Warrens, Hordeling Outburst, and Legion Warboss will make a small swarm of goblin tokens. Clarion Spirit will make a spirit when you cast your second spell each turn. Resolute Reinforcements will make a token when it enters. Emeria Angel and Philidar Retreat will make a token when you put a land into play. Elspeth Tyrell is a planeswalker that will let you gain life, create 3 and 1/1 tokens, or destroy all other permanents except for lands and tokens. Loyal Apprentice will make a Thopter at the start of combat if Arabella is on the field. Secure the Wastes will make X tokens at instant speed. White Sun's Zenith will create X2/2 tokens, and then you shuffle it into your library to cast again if you find it. Sram's Expertise will make 3 and 1/1 tokens and let you cast a spell with mana value 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Skyte Knight Vanguard will create a token when it attacks. Genasi Enforcers and Worms Crossing Patrol have Myriad, which will create a token copy of themselves attacking each other opponent when you attack a player. These tokens that are tapped and attacking will count for the Arabella trigger as long as Arabella's trigger is the last one that's resolved. Inquisitorial Rosette is an equipment for 2 that equips for 3. It says whenever equipped creature attacks, create a 2/2 token with vigilance that's attacking. Then attacking creatures gain menace until end of turn. This doesn't have to be on Arabella to give her menace, and with enough creatures this could help many of our tokens get through for damage. But the best option that I think many token decks in white are sleeping on is Rabble Rousing. It's an enchantment for 4 and a white with Hideaway 5. Hideaway says when it enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library and exile 1 face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. The enchantment says whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, create that many 1/1 citizen tokens. Then if you control 10 or more creatures, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Now this doesn't seem that powerful at first glance, but at the very least, if you attack each of your opponents with 1 token creature and they die, you will get 3 citizen tokens that are untapped that can block until your next turn. But if you swing with 7 creatures including Arabella at an open opponent or make your opponents unable to block, you'll wind up with 14 tokens on the field when Arabella triggers, dealing 14 damage to them and gaining 14 life on top of whatever combat damage you'll deal. This is a budget anointed procession and is definitely the golden coconut of the deck, which is a totally original award given to the best card in the deck. Darien King of Keeldor will make tokens depending on how much damage you are dealt. Krenko Tin Street Kingpin will get a 1/1 counter and create goblin tokens equal to its power when he attacks. Othari Sun's Glory will get an experience counter when it attacks and then create a number of 2/2s equal to the number of experience counters you have that are tapped and attacking. Now, Othari, Krenko, and Darien can all act as commanders if Arabella becomes too expensive to play, and they can still work with our general game plan. And that game plan uses the next set of cards. Cavalcade of Calamity, Hellrider, Impact Tremors, Witty Roastmaster, and Raid Bombardment will all deal a small amount of damage to your opponents when they enter or attack, depending on how many you're able to get onto the field and attack with, of course. Goblin Bombardment will let you sack them to ping targets for damage, either your opponent's important creatures or your opponents themselves to take them out. To help them, and more importantly Arabella, get through for damage safely, we have a small bit of evasion that also adds to Arabella's trigger. Goblin Smuggler, Goblin Tunneler, and Pathmaker Initiate will all tap to make a creature with power 2 or less unblockable. Toby Beastie Befriender will give your tokens flying as long as you control 4 or more token creatures. It does make a 4/4 token, but it can't attack or block alone. Skeleton Key costs 1 with an equip cost of 2. It gives a creature skulk, which means that it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, then discard a card. My favorite option though is War Cadence, an enchantment for 2 and a red that says pay X in a red. Creatures can't block this turn unless their controller pays X for each blocking creature. Now, while this can let us pay to get our creatures through for damage, we can also activate it on our opponent's turns to help them get through for damage, like when they're sending everything they can at the opponent with the most dangerous board state. In order to keep your hand full, we have the cheapest card draw we can use. Idol of Oblivion will let us tap it to draw a card when we create a token. Cut a Deal will have each opponent draw a card, then you draw a card for each card they drew. Mentor of the Meek will let you pay 1 when a creature with power 2 or less enters. Rumor Gatherer will have you scry 1 when a creature enters, but when the ability triggers a second time you can draw a card. Welcoming Vampire will let you draw a card when another creature enters with power 2 or less. This only triggers once per turn. Spirited Companion and Wall of Omens will let you draw a card when it enters. Splitskin Doll will let you draw a card when it enters. Then you will discard a card unless you control another creature with power 2 or less, which should be pretty easy in this deck. Well of Lost Dreams is an artifact for 4 that says, whenever you gain life you may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained. If you do, draw X cards. Since Arabella can gain us quite a bit of life with enough mana, this can refill our hand very easily. Now, to protect our board, we're using Rootborn Defenses, Unbreakable Formation, and Make a Stand. But in addition to Indestructible, we have some white counterspells with Lapse of Certainty and Reprieve. To remove our opponent's best pieces, we have Generous Gift, Swords to Plowshares, Wear Tear, and Kabira Takedown. But to help with our main strategy, we're also using Philidar Cub, Release the Gremlins, and Unidentified Hovership. Austere Command and Dusk Dawn act as our board wipes, and then the Dawn side of Dusk Dawn and Dewdrop Cure act as a small bit of recursion. In order to cast all this stuff, we of course have a bit of cheap ramp with Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, Boros Signet, Goldmire, and Knight of the White Orchid. Our deck is low to the ground, so we don't need mass amounts of mana to function, thankfully. And then we have the miscellaneous cards. Gleaming Barrier is a wall that will get us a treasure when it dies. Beamtown Beatstick will give Arabella +1/+0 and Menace. If she deals combat damage to a player or battle, you create a treasure. Crashing Drawbridge is a wall that gives our creatures haste. But Field Tested Frying Pan is one I really want to see work. It's an equipment for 2 and a white with an equip cost of 2. It says when it enters, create a food token, then create a 1/1 token and attach the frying pan to it. Then it says equipped creature has whenever you gain life, this creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the amount of life you gained. So when Arabella attacks, your opponents will be dealt damage and she'll gain life equal to the number of creatures with power 2 or less. Then when you gain that life, the equipped creature will get that much bigger as it's swinging at your opponent's face. With enough creatures, this could make the doll a terrifying threat, especially if Rabble Rousing is on the field. And then I just have 34 basic lands to finish out the deck and it's complete. According to Moxfield, the total of the deck comes to about $26, which is a fantastic deal in our current era of overpriced power decks. Arabella still performs well, and with our alternative commanders in the deck we can change gears and still smash our opponent's faces in. I'll be building this one myself and I'll post my upgrade when it's finished. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all for today. You're welcome.